So, good afternoon. Thank you for your attendance today. Today, May 3rd, 2024, I have the opportunity to share with you what does it happens with those high temperatures while we are cooking our meals in our kitchen. Are those high temperatures a path to disease? Are those high temperatures just a chance or a causality? And that's very important to answer because we need to have in mind that we should be eating with a warranty from our, let's say, from our parents that we are eating healthy. But what happens when our parents are not aware that what we are eating, what they are providing to us, do have a high content of advanced glycosylation end products, and those trigger to disease. So my name is Raúl Pineda. I am biochemist from the Faculty of Chemistry in Mexico City. And I'm also director of the DEXA Body Composition Research Center in Mexico City. I have no conflicts of interest to declare. So this conference has been split into 4 different parts. The first one, the background. The second one, how these substances or compounds are synthesized. The third one is how can I measure or test them in my blood or in my urine? And last but not least, what strategies to reverse those age formations I might have? Regarding all these 3 questions, we all should think about if I am doing the proper food choices, if I am certain that I'm eating healthy. The second one is the way of cooking being safe. I mean, are those frying pans and casseroles and all the kitchenware is safe, or the way I'm cooking my meals dangerous? The third one is, am I using the safest kitchenware or not? So today, I'm going to address only to the second topic. That is the way I'm cooking being safe, or I'm getting intoxicated? So I'm going to start with the first one. What is the food impact on body composition, inflammation, cytokine storm, and SARS-CoV-2? How do our nutrition patterns affect our health and our well-being? And the second question is, have we become or became addicted to tasty and spiced food? You see in the slide that McDonald's is proudly making us fat. And that rich fat diet is triggered by 3 main reasons. The first one is related to an increased level of saturated fatty acids. By other hand, I have a decreased short-chain fatty acids. And this ratio of decreased omega-3 in terms of omega-6 might become dangerous for our health. Last but not least, we need to be aware, at least in Mexico, that obesity triggers and makes easier to become ill, particularly in such patients with SARS-CoV-2. So we have a myriad or several tissue organs that get affected by this rich fat diet. As the last slide mentioned, welcome to America. Your wife is fat, you are fat, your kids are fat. And this rich fat diet drives multiple organ failure, such as kidney, hepatic tissue, the liver, and our heart, as well as our lungs. But it also affects our eyes and our bones. So there is a marked increased mortality in those with obesity nowadays. And SARS-CoV-2 have developed deep inflammatory states known as cytokine storms, at least in these 3,300 patients that were dead during the last pandemics. There are two main things that I must have in mind to avoid. The first one is decreasing stress, decreasing inflammation in order to decrease cellular damage. The second one is try to avoid oxidant stress and oxidized lipids, as well as a way of avoiding cytokine release. And cytokines are proteins that are sending signals to the rest of our body, precisely the brain, but also our immune cells, saying, hey, here there are problems, and that cytokine release is mediated by interleukin-1, interleukin-6, and tumoral necrosis factor alpha. So it all comes right with obesity that triggers ROS, reactive oxygen species, as well as, you know, the accumulation of lipid tissue. Those drive inflammation, insulin resistance, high glucose, diabetes mellitus type 2, and the accumulation of these high glucose level drives into age formation, and our cells have receptors that are called RAGEs. These receptors are stimulated and they close this circle, and that's why the white adipose tissue is a key driver for hyperinflammation, and also these viral spikes molecules attachment attached to our respiratory, gastrointestinal, nervous system, central nervous system, liver, fat, and immune cells. So whenever we develop obesity, we are getting exposed to this immune system pre-activated, as well as the expression of a certain molecule called ACE, the angiotensin converting enzyme class 2, and that triggers hyperinflammation. So we have three main body composition measurements to provide us about the need of action to address. As long as we keep our mass fat as low as possible, feasible, and maintain muscle and skeletal mass as high as possible, the better. Whenever we have a very high amount of fat mass, very low of skeletal mass, and very low of muscular mass, particularly in arms and legs. We call that entity osteosarcopenic obesity. Sadly, in this publication from April 2020, from Suarez and collaborators, the four main comorbidities found during these last pandemics from January to April were hypertension, diabetes, obesity, and smoking. So epidemiological studies show higher risk in people with previous comorbidities. And it is our brain that senses inflammation and triggers inflammatory signals in other organs. Here we have a publication from Pablo Lenny here in Mexico, from the psychiatry hospital that describes very accurately what this message from the hypothalamus activates suprarenal glands, increasing the amount of cortisol and adrenaline. And that amount of 10 nanomoles of cortisol and adrenaline into the macrophages in our cells that do phagocytosis, those derive or increase the amount of cytokines, of pro-inflammatory cytokines. And so it becomes a circle of inflammation and certain chemical mediators that are telling the brain, our brain, to keep in a very emergency situation. The second part that I want to show, to describe to you, is how these sugars, throughout their chemical structures, trigger chronic degenerative diseases. We have a quote from Cicero, who once said, "Eating is a need, but eating smart is an art." Because we give all for granted that we are going to eat, and that meal is not going to harm us. So in the brain, we have three main areas. The first one is driven by dopamine and is situated in the tegmental ventral area, and it is mediated by emotions. So whenever we have high levels of dopamine, we decide things and we do things. The second one is motivation, and that area that controls motivation is described in the nucleus accumbens area, and is mediated by serotonin. But last but not least, we have in our prefrontal area, in the encephalic area, we have the cognition one. And cognitive areas are driven by serotonin, but also by glucose. So our gut and our limbic area are telling us throughout emotions what do we eat and what we shouldn't eat. You know that our cells ask for glucose as a source of energy, and energy drives the movement of the universe and the earth throughout the conversion of it into different types, such as solar. Here is the rayonnant energy, chemical, aeolic, thermal, hydraulic, nuclear, electrical, magnetical, and mechanical. But anyway, what our brain is asking us is for glucose. And 20% of the total expenditure of the total energy in our body becomes from our brains. Our brain is asking for glucose. So we need glucose as a source of energy for our brain. You and me know this very well. There's called photosynthesis, where luminic energy is transformed into chemical energy, and this process during the day generates glucose as well as oxygen. But at night, the plants synthesize, they start to breathe, and throughout the breathing of their of the plant, they generate carbon dioxide, as well as water. So plants fix sunshine throughout photosynthesis to switch it into carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and other compounds. And animals, as we, that we are heterotrophs, eat plants that are autotrophs to provide energy in a reduced electronic state. Whenever we have a feast and we eat and eat and we do not stop eating, we have certain receptors in our cells, in all our cells. The first one is the nutrient transporter. The second one is the toll-like receptor that is mainly situated in the immune system. And the third one that is also situated in the in our immune cells, they work in tandem to generate an inflammatory kinase pathways, and they generate transcription factors such as AP1 and nuclear factor kappa of cells V. That is the answer to this endoplasmic reticulum stress and the mitochondrial stress. And the cell that senses that inflammatory pathway are our neurons and our glia cells. So our brain senses that something is going on wrong because we ate too much. And they increase the synthesis here of interleukin-1 beta, tumoral necrosis factor, and interleukin-6. You can see in the slide with red color that we have certain countries that have the highest prevalence of mortality driven by diabetes in the world in year 2012. And Mexico is one of them. So we need to be aware of the amount of sugar that we are eating. We have certain names called advanced glycation end products that are related to proteins, advanced lipoxidation end products that are related to lipids, and advanced nucleation end products because glucose attached to proteins, to lipids, and also to nucleic acids. So whenever we have hyperinflammation is the synonym of an ignition of a source of energy in an incorrect place and moment. Ages formation means that we are having a huge energy source out of place, time, and storing conditions. Here we have a comparison between year 2021 and the projection to 2045 in terms of the first 10 countries regarding people living with diabetes type 2. We can see that Mexico is also duplicating the amount of patients for the next 24 years. In the case of America, of United States, they only increase about 10%. And in case of Japan, they are decreasing the amount of patients with diabetes. If we have a look of what is happening in Mexico regarding the difference among men and women, you can see here with the gray bars that women almost duplicate the amount of prevalence of diabetes in terms of men, no matter what the decade, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or more. If we have, moreover, if we have a deep look of what are the states with higher prevalence of mortality in our country, we find that Veracruz, Tabasco, here Veracruz, here Tabasco, Puebla, Morelos, Oaxaca, and Mexico City have the higher mortality. In terms of what we teach in chemistry fourth sessions here in CCH Vallejo, you can find here in the slide the difference between an aldehyde and a ketone. You can here identify easily a radical RCOH. And here you can find RCO. And here there is a mistake because it isn't possible that any carbon compounds have 5 bonds. So here is a terrible mistake. So we have a ketone that is RCO. This is the carbonyl group. Here is the carbonyl group. And R2. So aldehydes is a functional group that is in the stream of the molecules, while ketones are always in the center. And this makes a difference because these aldehydes, these aldoses, are more reactive than ketoses. Here we have a comparison of aldoses of 3, 5, and 6 sugars, and ketones of 3, 5, and 6 carbons. The first one is glyceraldehyde that has 3 sugars. Then we have ribose, and this is very important to bear in mind because you know that ribose is a key component of nucleic acids and also is a key component of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So we need to understand that this ribose is highly reactive to the reaction with any compound that has amine or nitrogen as a reactive. Here we have glucose and galactose, and you know that glucose and galactose are present all together in the milk, but when they are separated, they are both aldoses, so they are highly reactive. And down here we have the example of a fructose that is present mainly in the fruits, and has a ketone functional group. So fructose is less reactive than glucose or galactose. Here we have the mechanism of action. Here we have a base nucleophilic reaction where the amine is being attracted by this carbonyl group, and then it is formed what is known as an imine, una imina, imine. But this compound is very unstable. So this is the first step called, this is called the the shift base, and then we have the Amadori one. We can see glucose in two ways. One is open and one is cycled. Any of them, they are going to react readily with this amine group, creating this shift base, as mentioned, creating this imine. Yes, this imine. And finally, there is a Amadori rearrangement so that the product becomes a ketone. It is a ketosamine. Okay. In short, we can say that whenever we have a glucose, this glucose can react with a lysine group that is an amino acid. And the more nitrogens that a molecule or the amino acid has, the more bonds or advanced glycation and products we are going to have. But the two more important reactions are driven by lysine and arginine or arginine. So we have AGEs, ALES, and ANES. And any of them is a glucose or a fructose that bond to proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids, modifying their structure and functions. The first one who realized this situation was Louis-Camille Maillard in 1913. He realized that these reactions created smells, tastes, and also created this consistency of the food that tell us that in this case the meat is ready to be eaten. And he was also the first one of calling this a browning effect. Now we know that this browning effect is related to melanodines. Melanodines are compounds that smell, taste, and are colored in a yellowish or orangish or reddish color. And these volatile compounds are oxazoles, furanes, pyrazines, furanones, pyrols, thiophens, and others. But these provide this exquisite smell of meat, of roasted meat. Pyrazines and thiophens are related to roasted or toasted or cooked meat, principally meat. Whereas oxazoles, furans, and furanones are related to sugars such as, lactose, to milk, and others. The favorable effects of this Maillard reaction is well known and described by the meal industry or the food industry laboratories, because they modify the flavor, the smell of the food, and the development of attractive colors. Whereas whenever you are getting this meat dehydrated, the size of the meat becomes more and more, they become smaller, and they react with certain vitamins, specifically with vitamin K, that has phenolic compounds and double bonds and ketone compounds. So the quality of the amino acids is decreased or lost, and they drive into carcinogenic compounds such as acrylamides. What are advanced glycation end products? It's a group of organic compounds, about 78, that have highly reactive, and they are known as a group as glycotoxins. They can be easily formed in food that is exposed to high temperatures, such as roasted, fried, toasted, clogged up, caramelized, or weathered. And we need more than 148 grade centigrade for more than 10 minutes to multiply it per 10 the H's content. So they become glycotoxins. Diet is the highest contributor to H formation in human diet. And so any sugar may react with proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids, modifying their structure and function. They modify the appearance, the taste, the odor, and consistency, but they also modify protect the digestibility, and they protect functionality. Said there are two main ways where shift base are turned into ages. The first one is Wolff pathway, and the second one is Namiki pathway. And they are different regarding or according to their reaction conditions. Here we have an excellent article from the University of Technology in Malaysia that provide us these slides where we can see that we have mostly aliphatic compounds such as carboxymethyl lysine that is open. This is open, but here we have pentosidine that it is a purine. It's a purine, and that is present in the nucleic acids. As well, we have here at the right, we have a couple of pyrimidines. Gold and mold are pyrimidines. The difference between these this type of compound is that those in the left are non-fluorescent, and those in the right are fluorescent. So altogether, all these compounds were related to the smell, taste, and the chemical structure. We need to bear in mind that there are two ways. One is low cellular enzyme dependent, where we do not need high temperatures. We simply, whenever we have high levels of glucose in our bloodstream, they are going to become into methyl glyoxal and these compounds. But whenever we are using high temperatures, glucose and lipids and also nucleic acids are going to turn into glyoxal, and they are going to readily and quickly become advanced glycation AGEs, ALES, or ANES. So Maillard reactions are really formed depending on the type of sugar, depending on the type of protein, depending of the high cooking temperature, as well as a low humidity and alkaline pH in our meals. Here we have what we call golden brown delicious, because you know that Domino's Pizza and as well as Burger King and McDonald's and all those companies of roasted chicken as KFC are gonna tell us that these golden brown meals are delicious. So we need to avoid all these compounds. Here are some examples of ages found in some meals and beverages, such as Coke, soy sauce, bread, cookies, pizzas, grilled meat, grilled meat, poultry, and fish, as well as coffee, chocolate, and dark beer, as well as caramelized, such as the flans. So I left at the end the tobacco smoke, because whenever you are smoking and you finish your cigarette, you can see in the filter that you have there yellow to coffee color in the filter. The first one who started naming all the different kinds of ages, ALIS, and ANIS was Dr. Ahmed. So Dr. Ahmed was a key promoter of naming age compounds since 1985. And you can see here that most of these molecules are lysine or arginine. Arginine, lysine, 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 arginine, lysine, arginine, lysine, arginine, lysine, arginine, lysine, arginine, lysine. No, lysine, lysine, arginine, lysine, arginine, arginine, arginine. So in these 24 compounds, we have a predominancy of attached to lysine and arginine residues. Dr. Uribarri and Dr. Blasara described this and published this robust article describing ages amount in a large cohort of 545 foods and drinks, and establishing a threshold of over 7,500 daily ages units to develop disease. That means that whenever you are over this threshold, you are going to start developing disease. And it's very easy that if you eat just one slide of pizza in the afternoon and you drink a Coke, or you have your breakfast and your dining, you are going to exceed this threshold of 7,500. Such as a hamburger that has 7,800, a couple of hot dogs that have 10,100 ages, and only 50 grams of bacon that have 12,000 ages. But today I was reviewing a report from 2022, and I found that they are describing 91,000 ages with some strips of bacon. So let's be aware of what we're eating whenever they are fried and they are toasted and they are delicious. The more delicious, the more toxic. And so our brain, our GI tract, our liver, kidney, immune system, vascular system, pancreas, and white adipose tissues have certain receptors that are called RAGEs, and they are related to diseases in all these organs. And here, of course, it is not described eyes, and I are not describing neither our bones. So we have here a publication from Rojas that described that diabetic patients who additionally got this virus, this SARS-CoV-2, developed a truly damaging morbidity. Dr. Uribarri and Dr. Blasara found that there are certain areas in the renal cells, glomerular basement membrane, mesangium, tubular basement membrane, interstitium, and vessel walls, related to these kind of patients: diabetic, nephropathy, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, hypertensive nephropathy, And in cases of patients with multiple myeloma, IgA nephropathy, as well as people with lupus nephritis. So let's be aware that all these toxic compounds are going to be eliminated by our renal cells, but most of the time they are going to be trapped, and they are going to be enough to develop disease in these places. So whenever we have an H attached to its receptor, there are going to happen two things. The first one is the reactive oxygen species production that is going to oxidize lipoproteins, LDL lipoproteins, as well as inflammatory cytokines that I already have described, such as interleukin-1, 6, and tumoral necrosis factors. And but there are some others. I described just a single one here, but there are some others, and all those generate the transcription and the synthesis of more proteins that are deleterious. Here is an example in the macrophage that is releasing inflammatory cytokines throughout the TLRs, the toll-like receptors, and some other receptors. So that's the troublesome situation with ages. Ages are also related to aging and the expression in our faces, but it is also related to COVID. And so ages and SARS-CoV-2 share the same patterns of TLRs, AC2, and also the rages that drive altogether into cytokine storm. And that's why we understand that COVID-19 was more prevalent and in patients with diabetes. Last but not least, I would say that these hyperglycemic patients are increasing the number of M2 macrophages. They are causing netosis in the segmented cells. They are increasing the platelets activation, and that's why many people die nowadays. And in this week, AstraZeneca admitted that these spike S proteins were related to thrombosis and sudden deaths. And last but not least, we must say that the Th7 lymphocytes decrease in its amount, and so people get immunodepressed. Last, I'm going to talk about testing with two slides. The first one is that we need to measure this hemoglobin A1C, and the lesser the number, the better. 5.5 would be the threshold. If we are between 5.7 and 6.5, we are at risk, and more of that is going to drive or trigger into macrovascular and microvascular damage. The second one is a very advanced one. It is devised manufactured in Netherlands, and this device tells us the amount of fluorescence that is being released by our skin. So whenever we have more than 2.7 units of fluorescence, we are going to develop microvascular and microvascular diseases. Complications. I would like to ask to end my participation today talking about what clinical strategies we have for decreasing this situation. The first one is measuring our pH in our general urine test. En nuestro examen general de orina, if we have 7.0, that is neutral, to a rather slightly alkaline, we are going to make reversible this reaction. But if we have acidic less than 7.0 in our general urine test, we are going to worsen the clinical shape of the patients, and that is going to be irreversible. So we have a couple of 4 main strategies to address ages using vitamins, polyphenols, enzymes, and certain pharmaceutical approach. In terms of vitamins and polyphenols, we have this N-acetylcysteine, NAC. We have benfotiamine, that is B1 vitamin. And we have also pyridoxamine, that is B6 vitamin, in order to block all these agents from entering. So in general, we can say we have certain strategies such as chelating agents, vitamin D, E, C, and vitamin B, all of them work as chelating agents. They trap ages. There are 2 other proteins or amino acids such as taurine and carnosine, and also alpha lipoic acid that has been shown not only to decrease the amount of these glucosylated or lipoxylated end products, but also to decrease cancer, to decrease the clinical outcomes in patients with breast cancer and prostate cancer. Last but not least, I would say that there are certain bioxydative agents such as ozone, hyperbaric chamber, and the hydrogen peroxide, agua oxigenada, as well as chlorine dioxide that may, because of these double bonds, may decrease and trap all these compounds or react with them. We have here only 5 mechanisms of actions, but there are 28 that I'm not going to describe all them to you. Only I would say that we can inhibit the age formation. We can break the cross-link from the ages. We can block the receptors, and we can increase the clearance of them throughout certain enzymes, as well as, of course, reducing the exogenous exposure. Eating low ages diet would be appropriate. Our colonic microbiota, throughout the fiber of the probiotics, decrease the entrance of these agents. But also our microbiota, in terms of prebiotics, make use of these agents and destroy them before they enter. That's why 80% of the total amount of agents that we eat do not enter, but it depends on the microbiota that we have. So this modulation, the hyperinflammatory colonic state, decrease permeability and enhance short-chain fatty acid synthesis. By other hand, we have exercise. Whenever we are increasing the bloodstream in our veins, in our arteries, we are cleansing and we are eliminating throughout our lymphatic system, and we are modulating anti-inflammatory cytokines. We are increasing these anti-inflammatory cytokines, such as interleukin-4, interleukin-10, and boost optimal brain and body function. This also decreases the autophagy, or the programmed cell death, in pancreas, brain, liver, heart, and adipose tissue. Of course, all the myokines these myokines brings benefits to the brain, to the liver, to the gut, pancreas, heart, blood vessels, and start making the differentiation from white fat to brown fat. In conclusions, we can say if someone wishes to for good health, one must ask them, or one must ask himself or oneself, if he or she or me are ready to do away with the reason of the illness. Only then it is possible to help everyone. We have spoken today that glycotoxic compounds found in prepared and industrialized foods depend on several factors. They attach to several cellular compounds and structures that promote apoptosis. Finally, that any viral infection in future will be ineffective if it faces cells that are not pre-activated and in a pro-inflammatory state in different tissues. So let's prepare ourselves and our loved ones from upcoming health hazards, making sure to be fully healthy at all times. We need to include interdisciplinary health professionals to achieve optimal outcomes. And eating is just one part of well-being that need to be accomplished with mental health, proper rest, exercise, clean water, breathing properly, and taking sunbaths. I want to bless and thank to our team of colleagues that have participated throughout these last 10 years for this research. So I would be happy to have certain questions from my students that I think there are 6 at the moment. And if you do not have more to say, then thank you for your attendance today. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.